Today we're going to look at the new fantasy and sci-fi releases coming out in the month of July. And there is a mix of stuff this month. We've got a book from Keanu Reeves, we've got fantasy novellas, we've got Viking fantasy, we've got cozy fantasy. There truly is something for everyone. So without further ado, the books. That was my shoulder. Ow. Shouldn't click like that. Releasing on July 2nd, we have The Failures by Benjamin Lyer. In an unparalleled blend of apocalyptic science fiction and epic fantasy akin to the masterpieces like Neil Gaiman's Neverwhere, N.K. Jemisin's Broken Earth trilogy, and David Mitchell's Cloud Atlas, debut author Benjamin Lyer presents the first gripping installment of the Wonderlands trilogy. The vast, machine-like expanse of the Wonderlands, crafted by long-lost gods, is teetering on the brink of eternal darkness. Amidst this decaying behemoth, a diverse group of heroes driven by prophetic dreams embark on a perilous journey. Their mission? To mend their crumbling world or witness its irrevocable end. This is one that I have had my eye on for quite a while. It is a brand new epic series from a debut author, and it sounds incredibly unique. Sounds like a lot of genre blending, and it just sounds like something that will stand out from the crowd. And Patrick Leo's read it and really enjoyed it, so you know it's going to be a good time. If it has the Patrick stamp of approval, it's going to be good. Color me intrigued. Also coming out on July 2nd, we have Into the Rift by Clay Harmon. Now this is the sequel to Flames of Mira, which, if you've been following the channel for a while, I enjoyed greatly. So I'm very excited for this sequel. And in this world, society live in tunnels under the ground because the planet is uninhabitably cold, so they need to live in tunnels close to lava to keep themselves warm. So there's really interesting setting here, and the character dynamics are really interesting as well, because the main character, Ig, is fleshbound to a magnate, which means he has to do everything that this magnate says, which creates this sort of weird dynamic between him and his captors. Kind of Stockholm Syndrome type situation with some of the other side characters in the family. And then this compounds and gets even more complicated when there is a coup. It's really good. It has a chemical-based magic system, unique character dynamics, fascinating world setting. If you haven't already checked out Flames of Mira, definitely check it out. And the sequel is coming out on July 2nd. Coming out on July 7th, we have A Reckless Courage, which is a Norse-inspired fantasy novella, which means it is short. It is about 112 pages, according to Goodreads. And this is a prequel novella to the series that starts with Kingslayer, which is already out. Not the entire series, just the first book. And it's got a lot of Norse names, and I apologize for the pronunciation of these. Oslong Grimsdottir, a former priestess of the Sisterhood, and Ovar Hakonsson, a former drenger of the Krakar Shield Wall, are happily living a peaceful new life on their farm, until the gods decide to test both short-lived by weaving their fates into new paths. Fates woven, hearts broken, life is given, and life is taken. The time has come for a reckless courage. So if you're a fan of Norse Viking-inspired fantasy, definitely check the short novella out, and you can check out the full novel as well. Coming out on July 9th, we have The Sky on Fire from the acclaimed author of the Chorus of Dragons series. This propulsive new standalone fantasy is Dragon Riders of Pern for a modern audience. Enter a world ruled by dragons. Anarod lives only for survival, preferring to thrive in the jungles of the deep. With the Titan Drake she keeps by her side, when an adventuring party saves her from capture by the local warlord, Zakarian, she is eager to return to her solitary life, but this is no ordinary rescue. Anarod's past has caught up with her, and these cunning misfits intend to spirit her away to the Cloud Cities, where they need her help to steal from a dragon's horde. There's only one in the Cloud Cities, dragons rule, and the horde in question belongs to the current regent, Niveranimus, and she wants Anarod dead. It's dragons, and it's a heist, and it's a standalone, which is something we don't get very often in fantasy, so this is really cool and interesting to see. I'm definitely intrigued to hear how the early reception for this book is taken. Might be something I have to check out. And I try really hard not to say this with every book that has a nice cover, but ooh, nice cover. I need like a soundbite or something of me saying that rather than having to say it every single time. Also coming out on July 9th, we have Navola, which has a very striking eye on the cover and immediately made me think of Sauron. But it's nothing to do with Lord of the Rings, just so we're clear. But it does look a bit like that. In Navola, a bustling city-state dominated by a handful of influential families, business is power, and power is everything. For generations, the De Reguli family, merchant bankers with a vast empire, has nurtured tendrils that stretch to the farthest reaches of the known world. And though they claim to not be political, their staggering wealth has bought cities and toppled kingdoms. Soon, Daviko de Reguli will be expected to take the reins of power from his father and demonstrate his mastery of the games of Navalese, knowing who to trust and who to doubt, and how to read what lies hidden behind a smile. But in Navola, strange and ancient undercurrents lurk behind the guilt and grandeur, like the fossilized dragon eye in the family's possession, a potent symbol of their raw power and a talisman that seems to be summoning Daviko to act. As tensions rise and the events unfold, Daviko will be tested to his limits. His fate depends on the Eldritch Dragon relic and on what lies buried in the heart of his adopted sister, Celia de Balcosi, whose own family was destroyed by the Navola's twisted politics. With echoes of Renaissance Italy, The Godfather, and Game of Thrones, Navola is a stunning feat of world building and a mesmerizing depiction of drive and will. I've not really seen this book talked about much, but this sounds really cool. It sounds very political. I like this sort of Renaissance Italy inspiration. There's a dragon eye relic. That's awesome, and it makes sense with the cover now. Not a Sauron in sight. And also, if you want a super pretty version for the shelf, the Broken Binding are doing a special edition of this book, and it does look stunning, as most of their editions do. And as always, all the books I talk about are linked in the description. Also coming out on July 9th, we have The Spellshop by Sarah Beth Durst. Probably the most common question I get with these new release videos is about cozy fantasy books. We have one. Here's a new one. Keela has always had trouble dealing with people. Thankfully, as a librarian of the Great Library of Elysium, she and her assistant, Kaz, have spent the last decade sequestered among the Empire's most precious spellbooks, preserving their magic for the city's elite. When a revolution begins and the library goes up in flames, she and Kaz flee with all the spellbooks they can carry and head to a remote island Keela never thought she'd see again, her childhood home. Taking refuge there, Keela discovers, much to her dismay, a nosy and very handsome neighbour who can't take a hint and keeps showing up day after day to make sure she's fed and to help fix up her new home. In need of income, Keela identifies something that even the bakery in town doesn't have: jam. With the help of an old recipe book her parents left her and a bit of illegal magic, her cottage garden is soon covered in ripe berries. But magic can do more than make a life sweeter, so Keela risks the consequences of using unsanctioned spells and opens the island's first ever and much needed secret spell shop. It's also listed as cottage core full of stolen spellbooks, unexpected friendships, sweet jams, and even sweeter love. So if you're looking for something a little more cozy, a little bit more upbeat and heartwarming, the spell shop comes out July 9th. Also coming out on July 9th, we have The Blood Dimmed Tides by Stephen Aaron. Now this is the sequel to The Judas Blossom. This is a historical fantasy book, and because it is a sequel, we will look at the synopsis for book 1, because then if you've read that, you will know if you want to continue on to book 2 or not. Due to the efforts of the great Genghis Khan, the Mongol Empire covers a vast portion of the known world. In the shadow of his grandfather, Hulagu Khan, ruler of the Ilkhanate, is determined to create a single empire that covers the entire world. His method? Violence. His youngest son, Temujin Khan, struggles to find his place in his father's bloody rule. After another failure, Temujin is given one chance to prove himself, to Hulagu, who is sure there is a great warrior buried deep inside. But there's something else rippling under the surface, something far more powerful and dangerous than they could ever imagine. Reduced to the position of one of Haluga's many wives, the famed Blue Princess, Kokochin, is the last of her tribe. Alone and forgotten in a foreign land, Kokochin is unwilling to spend her days seeking out trivial pursuits. Seeking purpose, she finds herself wandering down a path that grants her more power than a wife of the Khan may be allowed. Kaivon, the Persian rebel who despises the Mongols for the massacre of his people, thirsts for revenge. However, he knows he alone cannot destroy the empire. When given the opportunity to train under the tutelage of Hulagu, Kaivon must put aside his feelings and risk his life for a chance to destroy the empire that aims to conquer the world. Family and war collide in this thrilling and bloody reimagining of the Mongol Empire's invasion of Persia. Coming out on July 11th, we have Murder on Hunter's Eve. This is the third book in the Lamplight Murder mysteries, the first being Murder at Spindle Manor. This was the book club pick for our Discord in the month of June, and I had a blast reading this. This was so much fun. I just finished it today, and I am so excited to continue on with this series. It feels very Knives Out, it's quite zany and bizarre, but also very clever. It has some really dark moments, has great humor. I really did have a blast reading this book. So because this is the third book is coming out, we will go over the synopsis for book 1, and then if you read that, you'll definitely know if you want to continue on to book 2 and 3. For Huntress Isabu Argwal, the countryside inn is the last stop in a deadly hunt. Armed with gas lamp and guns, she tracks an insidious beast that wears the skin of his victims, mimicking them perfectly. 10 guests reside within Spindle Manor tonight, and the creature could be any one of them. Confined by a torrential thunderstorm and running out of time, Isabeau has until morning to discover the liar, or none of them, including her, will make it out alive. But her inhuman quarry isn't the only threat residing in Spindle Manor. Gunshots, a slammed door, a dead body, somebody has been killed, and a hunt turns into a murder investigation. Now with 2 mysteries at her feet and more piling up, Isabeau must navigate a night filled with lies and deception. In a world of seances and spectres, mesmers and monsters, the unexpected is hiding around every corner, and every move may be her last. The first book in this series was also the winner of the SBFBO, which is the self-published fantasy blog off, so you know it's going to be a good read, and I can confirm it's a very good read. I highly recommend checking this series out. And now the third book is releasing on July 11th. Releasing on July 23rd, we have the Book of Elsewhere by Keanu Reeves, John Wick himself, and China Mayville. The legendary Keanu Reeves and inimitable writer China Mayville team up on this genre-bending epic of ancient powers, modern war, and an outcast who cannot die. She said we needed a tool, so I asked the gods. There have always been whispers, legends, the warrior who cannot be killed, who's seen 1,000 civilizations rise and fall. He has had many names: Unut, Child of Lightning, Death himself. These days, he's known simply as B, and he wants to be able to die. In the present day, a US Black Ops group has promised him they can help with that, and all he needs to do is help them in return. But when an all-too-mortal soldier comes back to life, the impossible event ultimately points toward a force even more mysterious than B himself, one at least as strong, and one with a plan all its own. A sort of urban fantasy, sci-fi mesh with a sort of modern warfare, very Terminator, John Wick type vibes. This sounds really cool, and also just something very different from the normal things that I talk about on this channel. So it's probably going to be one that I will check out eventually. And last, but most certainly not least, on July 30th, we have A Princess of Oldir by Brian Wilson. The Oldir family has guided the planet of Oldir for centuries, and as the ancestors of a prophet, the world's citizens have always honored their bloodline. However, the people's struggles are on the rise, and their solar system's limited resources continue to dwindle. Rana, the daughter of the current Lord Supreme, considers it her duty to rid the planet of its troubles. She spends most of her days training to take up her family's mantle, but when a popular young leader from a neighboring world arrives on their soil, it becomes evident that there are those with other wishes. Set more than 3 decades before the events of the Forsaken Planet, this is a story of one family's struggle to do what is right, even if it costs them their legacy. So this is a prequel. This is a prequel sci-fi novella. This is a sequel sci-fi novella that takes place before the first book, The Forsaken Planet. This is a... I'm just going to use the practice one. You get it. This takes place before the main book series. It is a standalone. I have confirmed with Brian that you can read this first. And this novella will be available completely for free if you sign up for Brian's newsletter. And over on the Discord, in the month of July, we will be reading The Silver Blood Promise by James Logan. So if you want to join the read-along for that, you can join the Discord completely for free in the description below. Also, just a little reminder that this is the last weekend that you can pick up anything from the Trauma Club merch, including hoodies, t-shirts, long sleeve t-shirts, or mugs. On July 1st, they will all be gone. So if you've been waiting to pick one of these up, now is the time. Thank you very much for watching. Outro. I just noticed that that's come with a coaster attached.